All right, we're going to take a look at the newly released Dragonbane Bestiary from Free League, who sent me this copy of it. And it is, as we'll see in this video, a bestiary for soloists, really. It's not, of course, it's just for Dragonbane, but the way it's put together, as we look at the credits here, it is a soloist dream of a bestiary, something that can be used, of course, with Dragonbane, but really also with other systems. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we look here at the table of contents, and it is organized sort of by type. And the book, as well as presenting beasts to have as enemies and opponents, also gives you stats for, in the early sections, to have these beasts be playable characters, playable kin within the game of Dragonbane. And they have a nice table here, a d20 table here, if you want to randomize what you are going to be. So you could play a human, or you could play an ogre, or a frog people, or a cat people. And so the stats in here are giving you the abilities to play as characters, as well as to fight them as enemies. And that is a benefit to the book. And we'll take a look at the little note here they have about using the book. It says it provides the game master with many exciting creatures. In addition, each creature in this book comes with a random encounter and an adventure seed. The random encounter can be introduced at any time during the player character's travels in the world of Dragonbane. The adventure seed is the beginning of a longer story that the GM can expand. It's intended for the players, as chapters 1 and 2 contain a total of 9 new playable kin that we just talked about, and the attributes, derived ratings, skills, and abilities listed for the playable kin represent typical NPCs as well. So it is within the context of a traditional RPG. It's giving you different options for players as well as the GM. And for soloists, which is sort of going to be our focus here a bit, it is giving you adventure seeds, it is giving you character reactions, as we will look at, as well as, not to be overlooked, just the general descriptions about what each of the characters are, and something about what goblins are, for example. And then, of course, there's the fantastic art that is throughout the book. This is a typical spread for an entry where we have the description of what the enemy is and its stats, its Dragonbane stats. And here we're getting names that you could give it, because you could play the dragon here. It has a particular ability, and then you get the adventure seed. So, for example, in this one, it's telling you that from the darkest depths of a vast forest, small bands of goblins are setting off on raids. Successfully robbing merchants, peasants, priests, and nobles has made them bolder. So far, they have not killed anyone who put their hands in the air, but several guards have lost their lives trying to stop them. It is Gutsy herself who is behind the attacks. In the autumn of her life, her mind is stuck in memories of being betrayed and forced to hide in the woods with her companions, like rats in filthy holes. Now she intends to take what she was once promised. Any gold the goblins scrape together is used to buy food, weapons, and equipment. Someone must stop her before her goblins grow so strong that they pose a real threat to everyone in the area. So, as it says, it's an adventure seed. Is it a whole involved story? No. Is it something to get you going? Yes. That's what a seed is. And we have these kinds of things for the beginning entries of all of these characters that are, as mentioned, playable characters. So you're getting names for the ogre, because you could play that. You're getting names for the orc, like Snagrat or Muzzorg, as well as, again, the random encounters and the adventure seeds. As we get further into the book, so then we have, well, before that, we have the rarekin. So here's the cat people with, again, it's really worth pausing and looking at the artwork, which is phenomenal, as well as they have, obviously, perhaps, or not obviously, the ability for the cat is 9 lives. So it's translated into Dragonbane world of willpower points, which vary. So cat people have an incredible ability to emerge unscathed from even the worst of ordeals. Activating this ability grants a boon on a death roll, and then it refers you to the page in the rulebook for what that means at the cost of 2 WP. The ability can also be used to reduce the number of d6s rolled for fall damage by 1 per willpower point, up to a maximum of 3. And then after the acrobatics roll to mitigate the damage, see page 53 in the rulebook. So that's getting into the weeds a little bit, but the point is it is referring you back to the rulebook, because obviously this is all connected to the other books of Dragonbane. However, it can be, I think, effectively used outside of Dragonbane if you have another rule set that you want to bring these characters in, because as we'll see as we get into further into the book, starting here with the fairy. Now, I think the fairy is a playable character, but we start to get these tables of monster attacks. And this is combined with the random encounter and the adventure seed, I think what makes this book usable outside of Dragonbane, especially for a solo play, because if you're playing with another rule set that has fairies or fairy-like creatures, you have the ability to get a random encounter drawn in. So in this case, the player characters pass an area inhabited by a group of fairies. The creatures subject them to a number of pranks as they make their way through the forest. And if the adventurers take it all in good humor, the fairies may even give them a simple parting gift once they tire of the game. So that's something you could bring in to your own story. Ditto the chart for the D6 chart for the attacks. Even if the actual stats don't work, narratively, you could have this play into your combat encounters. So, for example, maybe the fairy is going to be teasing you as an attack. In this case, it says the fairies hurl insults and taunts at their enemies. Everyone within 10 meters must succeed with a willpower roll or gain the angry condition. Those who are already angry gain another condition of their choice. Again, obviously it works perfectly well with Dragonbane rules, but that's the kind of thing you could also abstract into whatever rule set you had if you were trying to use this material with other rules. Perhaps you rolled up Sweet Dreams. A fairy sneaks up behind an opponent and stabs them with the poisonous thorn of an enchanted rose. The victim is injected with a paralyzing poison with potency 12. And so we'll see for the rest of the book as we go through. That is what we get. We're still with the playable characters here. So we have the frog people, and we have a harpy with monster attacks chart again, the random encounters, and the adventure seed. So as an example of the adventure seed, the temple in the small village of Thornvale has been invaded by a flock of harpies. They have built a nest in the highest tower of the temple, from where they terrorize the peaceful population, stealing food, throwing excitement at children, and throwing excrement at children, and shouting insults at anyone who walks the streets of Thornvale. Someone must rid the village of this torment, but the harpies have destroyed the stairs to the top of the tower, so the player characters must find another way to get there without the harpies hindering them. As we skip ahead, we can see there's lizard people, a mermaid, of course, again with her attack table. So perhaps she does a wave attack, repeatedly slamming its fishtail in the water and producing a powerful wave. All untethered objects and creatures within a 10-meter cone are pushed 2d6 meters away and suffer an equal amount of bludgeoning damage. Or maybe she has a spear threat. She thrusts its trident at an opponent. The attack inflicts 2d8 piercing damage and the victim is knocked down. I think as I'll just sort of scroll through here, and you could pause the video if you're interested in something in particular, just again to look at the layout, the composition, the art, the random encounter and adventure seed, and the monster attack table. And I think the monster attack table, in a way, I think is the most valuable thing in this book for soloists, because I find, at least, conducting combat when playing solo can be where things get to be a little lackluster, because you're just sort of going back and forth. The narration can drop away, the storytelling can drop away, and you're just trying to kind of get to the resolution, a numeric resolution with, well, how much damage did I take? How much damage did I inflict? Is this over yet on some level? But having things like the different attacks with the little name that they have, the pecking attack versus the pleading gaze, even those two words each describe something that feels different, that has an aspect of a story, or it's more cinematic. And I think, I love this picture of the treekin. I think that goes a long way to keeping the combat in a story at equal kind of narrative level of the rest of it, without it running the risk of kind of just dipping down into a bunch of die rolling. So if you can roll on a table and get death from above, a swarm of small birds swoops down on all opponents, versus up and away, the monster grabs the victim and hurdles it. That is, well, obviously it's explicitly cinematic, but it does a lot to continue your story along. And I think that this is where this bestiary for soloists is so rich, because you have this particular table, not to mention the adventure seeds or the encounters, so that if you were randomizing the rolls that you got and then you encountered, you're walking through and you have a beetlekin, you can read the random encounter and incorporate that into the story that you're telling. So it's not just like you turn, even if it's, you came across a spider in a dungeon, that you're not just sort of turning the corner and there's a spider and you're fighting it. You can read the little narrative here and have that into your own story, and then, of course, roll on the various attacks that they have. So that's the basic message here. As I just continue to flip through, it's not, the message isn't changing. It's just giving you a chance to see the richness of the what is in this book, and how it could be ported out if you had another rule set, for example, that had giants, mountain giants. And again, not to overlook the descriptive passages that there are with each of the entries, because I think that these two, just having this as a companion alongside where you are playing, if you are running into these characters or these enemies, to read about them, and they become a little bit more than just their name, will continue to drive your story forward, allow the richness of, there's a giant amoeba coming down the stairs. It has a tentacle attack. It could be a slime ball attack or a poison cloud. And you get your little description here. The player character sees something very strange on the road ahead. The horse and its rider have been devoured by a giant amoeba that has strayed from its habitat and found a deep pit where it now feeds on unwary travelers and their mounts. Again, keeping the narrative at a level, or keeping the level of narrative, I should say, consistent in a solo session is a challenge. And it especially can be challenging when you come to combat. And I think a book like this, whether you're playing, especially if you're playing Dragonbane, but even if you take it and use it with other rule sets, as perhaps I'll show that in a future video, is going to provide you with a richness to the combat that otherwise might be a little bit elusive. So that is a look through some of, not all of, most of the Dragonbane Bestiary. And I really highly recommend it, whether you're just interested in, I mean, the art alone, the descriptions of these types of enemies, to really get a feel for what they are and what they mean in a story, as well as the attack options that you're given and the encounters and adventure seeds. We have something for vampires. Is there's just a lot here. And then, of course, it ends with a whole section on dragons, from the hatchling dragon to the young dragon to the adult dragon to the ancient dragon. So that is a look inside the Free League published Dragonbane Bestiary. Highly, highly recommend it.